there, and welcome back to another one of my videos. In this video we're doing all the ins and outs of the PWK carb. PWK carb, this carb is completely different to your Del Auto. It's made by one of the best manufacturers of carburetors in the world, KM Carburetors. There's lots of copies that are about, like this one. This is by Polini. This is a copy of the PWK as well, but they're not original. What's the advantage over these PWK carbs over your Del Auto? The main difference is that they run a semi-flat slide. In other words, it's a D slide. So it's flat at the front and curved at the back. This gives you a slight advantage over a complete flat slide, which is very aggressive, very snappy throttle response, quick throttle response, and very high flow. But it does not have such a smooth running, and you can't calibrate the smoothness of the running in cruising speeds. They're really done for performance only, whereas this gives you the best of both worlds. Because it's a D slide and round at the back and flat at the front, it still has higher flow, quicker throttle response, and better performance than the round slide. But being a D slide, it does mean that it will be a little bit smoother than a full flat slide, and your running and cruising speed will be smoother. So that's the advantages of it. Okay, so this is your PWK carb. Let's look at how it's set up and how we jet it, how we adjust stuff on it, and how it actually works. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find a socket that will fit easily into the back of the carb. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put a bit of tape on it to give us a little bit of an interference fit. So then we can hold our carb in the vise without damaging it. So I'll stick a bit of tape on and we'll try that first. Oh yeah, that's lovely. Right, for this we're going to be using the trusty Buzzwangle. Here he is. Very, very handy piece of kit if you're on a Lambretta. We'll switch him on and zero it. Okay, we've got our float bowl off. What we're going to have to do is measure from the face, the gasket face on the carburetor, to the very bottom of the float, and that needs to be 20 millimeters for the correct float height for this carburetor. Other carburetors of other makes are different, bear that in mind. PWK from 21 millimeter up to 34 millimeter have this measurement of 20 millimeters. So we need to measure it at an angle of 60 degrees. So we've got to tilt the carb to 60 degrees. So we'll do that now. We'll just slacken the vise slightly and let it tilt around to 60 degrees, which is quite a way. There. Right, so now what we're going to do is just get a simple vernier, set it to 20 millimeters, close as I can get it. Okay, so then we measure from there to the bottom of the float, and this one is absolutely bang on, straight out of the box. That's really lucky. If it's wrong, you simply take the slide, take the needle out of here, and just take it off. It's easier because it will drop out. A little tap. And you'll find you have a tab in this middle that is made of metal, and you can bend this tab up or down to change the float height. So you just use a soft tool to bend that tab up or down without damaging the float in any way, as best as you can. Mostly I just go in with a small screwdriver. Just go in with a small screwdriver like that and just bend it down gently. I haven't moved it, I've just sort of showing you how. Or if you've got to go the other way, you can put it in behind and just bend it slightly with that to change your float height until you get it correct. Don't go crazy, very small adjustments. Okay, so now we've got a float height correct, we can now proceed to doing the jets. So first thing we're going to do is upgrade the atomizer from the atomizer that comes with this carburetor, because it's a copy carb, and we're going to upgrade it to the PWK atomizer and jets. We'll take out our main jet now and an atomizer, which is a 7, I believe. Just get a 7mm. There we go. So we take out the aftermarket one, which is 7mm. That gets replaced because this has got 12 holes in the atomizer, and we will replace it to the KN1 with 20 holes, and this increases atomization, and it gives us more power and smoother running. It does run much better with these if you change it. So we'll put that in, and that is a 10mm. So we'll just nip that up. Don't be too brutish with your jets, because they are just brass, and they right, we need the smaller spanner for that. Okay, the main jet is 6mm, and as you can see, the main jet is completely different to the one that comes with this copy carb. And so is the atomizer. The length of it is different. The main jet is totally different shape. They're a much better main jet, flow much better, more precise. So that goes in and just nipped up. And finally, your pilot jet is situated here, right behind the main jet. And we've chosen a 42 in this one. So I'm setting this up for a Lambretta with a Casa 185 kit on it. It's going 42 pilot jet, 20 hole atomizer, and a 115 main jet. This is your pilot jet. You have a pilot jet circuit which runs through the front of the carb, across the pilot jet, which then draws fuel through, the airflow draws fuel through to the back of the carb and straight in behind the slide, therefore flowing fuel when the slide is closed. This is adjustable with an air screw at the front. The air screw simply adjusts the volume of air flowing over the jet. The jet size remains constant. Don't get that mixed up with the Delauto that runs on a mixture screw, whereas the jet size is regulated by a screw which cuts down the amount of fuel flow. The air will be constant and the fuel flow will be adjusted. This one works differently. Unlike a Delauto, this will work from a quarter turn to 1 full turn. After 1 full turn, that is as weak as it's going to get. I'll say that again. The air screw is located here. You can screw it all the way in till it stops. It should be a quarter of a turn out at least to have some airflow over the jet, and from that you've got 1 full turn out, half, 1, and that's your maximum. Anything past that and the airflow is not doing anything, because you've already given it the full amount of airflow. If you keep screwing, it's not doing a change anything on the carburetor. If you want the carburetor to run weaker and you've run out of adjustment on the screw, you put a smaller pilot jet. If you've got your your air screw all the way in to get it as rich as possible, and it's still not rich enough, then you'll have to up the size of your pilot jet. Now the pilot jet adjusts the mixture from carb closed to 1/8 throttle. So just that first bit, as you can see I'm opening up there, about 1/8 throttle. That is where it has its most effect. After that, it doesn't have much effect. It does add to the overall fuel jetting of the carburetor, so whatever pilot jet you have in adds to the overall jet size. Okay, the next part of your carburetor that we're going to talk about is the slide. Now the slide regulates the amount of air and fuel that goes into your carb. Needle moves up with the slide, so it regulates the fuel, and it also regulates the amount of overall airflow. So you have at the bottom a small cutaway in the slide. This regulates the amount of initial airflow over your jet block and over your spray tube. So a bigger cutaway will give more airflow over the low end, and a shorter cutaway will give less airflow. So you can weaken or richen the bottom end of the carburation by adjusting different slides. A weaker or a richer slide. Weaker slide, bigger cutaway. Smaller slide, slower cutaway, smaller cutaway. I'll put a chart up showing some of the cutaways that are available on this carb. Okay, coming to one of the very important parts of this, we'll just zoom in, shall we, is your needle. This sits in the float, goes down through your atomizer and spray tube, and regulates precisely the amount of fuel that is being metered into the carb from the 1/8 throttle position all the way up to 3/4 throttle. After 3/4, it's overtaken by the main jet, but it still will have effect all the way up through the rev range, all the way to full throttle, depending on the needle you have fitted. I'm going to put a needle chart up so you can understand, but basically to adjust the height of the needle, if you lower the circlip, you move the needle up in the float, in the slide, and therefore you get more fuel. If you move the circlip up the needle, then the needle drops down into the carb, you will get less fuel. If you look at the chart, you'll find that there's different measurements along the needle that's available. The first measurement is the top of the shank, which is square on, parallel rather. That will be one measurement. The next measurement will be the second stage of the first stage of the taper, second stage of the needle. This part has one measurement, then the lower part has another measurement, and finally the tip diameter is the fourth measurement, and that will be in your needle chart, which I'll show you now. Okay, so I'll just drop this little baby back together. So we slide our float needle on there, hold it with your finger thusly, and then drop it into position so it fits inside. Then pass through the retaining pin. It should be free and no hindrance. So that is now back together. We'll drop the bottom of our carburetor back on. It's best to locate this choke. There's no choke jet in this carburetor. I forgot to mention that. There's no choke jet. There's just a tube that sucks up the fuel, and it's got a set choke. You can't adjust the choke jet. So it's best to get it onto that first, and the other pin slid in, and it normally goes on quite easy then. Put your two screws back and screw them down.